Time now for Ask the Expert, and today we have Brenda Hollingsworth with us from Auger Hollingsworth. She's a personal injury lawyer, taking your phone calls or emails and answering your questions. Any you may have for a personal injury lawyer. There's all the information on your screen, how you get those questions to us. You can send them via email, ottawa.morning@ctv.ca. Message us on Facebook, CTV Ottawa Morning Live, or give us a phone call, 613-789-6559, extension 2803. Hi, Brenda. Good to see you.
Hi, nice to see you.
Okay, so let's talk about accidents and car accidents in particular.
Sure.
We talk a lot about, I think we visualize fender benders when we think of car accidents, but there's a lot of different types of accidents out there that end up on your desk.
Right. And interestingly, there was a time when it was mostly rear-end accidents that we would see, and that has become much less common. My theory, my untested theory, is that as cars become more safe, those rear-end accidents are causing fewer injuries. I hope that's the case.
Yeah.
And so instead, though, we're seeing more serious injuries that come from different kinds of accidents.
Okay, let's talk about left turn accidents. I mean, those are probably pretty common.
Yes, so somebody is usually waiting for the light to turn. They are pulled up, going left.
Yep.
The light is turning yellow, so they need to make their left turn, and somebody tries to do the last minute oncoming through the yellow.
Yeah.
Bang. And what do you do there? Because one guy's going through the yellow and one guy's been waiting for the left turn. So that's a really difficult situation. Comes up a lot. Most of the time in that situation, there's probably going to be a split of who's responsible.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so normally the car going through has the right of way and is going to be not at fault. But when you've got the yellow light, which is most commonly what we see, you're probably going to have a split.
Okay. What about the right turn into a cyclist accident? I mean,
yeah.
Do you get a lot of these from downtown?
Yeah, we do. So somebody's turning right, either on red or on a green, and you've got a cyclist next to the curb going straight. You don't do that shoulder check over your passenger side. You don't see the cyclist. Bang. Yeah. That happens a lot. Sometimes the cyclist is going through a red, but most of the time they're not. It's a real problem because obviously it's not a fair fight, a car versus a bike.
And in those cases, the onus is on the driver.
Absolutely. You know, if a cyclist was going through the red, that would be a problem. But as I say, that's rare. And most of the time it's the driver going through, making the right.
Because that's so highly dangerous, obviously, for the cyclist. Is there anything the cyclist can do extra to be?
Well, I mean, ideally, you want to make eye contact with the driver, right? You want to make yourself seen, and if you're vulnerable, ring your bell. But you know, is somebody in the car going to hear the bell? Really, it's just being vigilant to make sure the driver's paying attention. But the onus is on the driver.
Okay.
Yeah.
Four-way stop accidents. If everybody's stopping, there shouldn't be any accidents.
Right. Well, people have a hard time knowing whose turn it is. Right. And so you just kind of have to remember, first come, first served, or the car on the right. Right. And some people are good at it. I feel like I'm a natural at it. I see it. But other people are like, whose turn is it? And the other thing is, if it's your turn, you need to go. Yes. Right? Because if you create uncertainty, that's also dangerous.
Yeah, it can be really frustrating sometimes when, I mean, people are trying to be nice to one another. It's like, no, you go. But it's like, no, it's your turn. You go, because it then holds it up.
Kindness kills, right? If you don't go when it's your turn, you can create an accident. And that's also true with sort of waving someone to do a left turn in front of you. The person beside you doesn't know that they've waved and bang.
Who's at fault then?
Well, the person who waved you through is long gone, right? That person doesn't stop, ever, ever. That happens all the time. I've never once had the person who caused the accident by waving stop.
Let me ask you another one. What about roundabouts? We're getting more and more of those in our city.
So I have not had a roundabout accident in our office yet. It's hard to believe.
I was going to say, that's surprising.
But I would think those accidents would be sort of gentle side swipes. They'd mess up your car, but hopefully not. I mean, I think the idea is to decrease speed so that people aren't injured in intersections. And to that extent, they're very difficult to manage. But I don't see accidents there, so maybe that's a success.
That's a good thing. Yeah, because if we're not seeing people being injured, that's maybe the point.
Yep, and so far, it's been a couple of years and we haven't had any.
What do you do if you're in any of these accidents and there's a disagreement, perhaps right there at the scene over who's at fault, or maybe even later on?
Yeah.
How does that come out?
Yeah, so if you suspect that there's going to be a disagreement, try really hard, if you're not too injured, to get pictures of where your car was and where the other person's car was, and to get witness info in your phone, because that's going to be really important later on when we try to reconstruct. Because what we actually hire engineers. There are many, many engineering companies, and this is what they do. They reconstruct accidents. And the more data they have, the better the estimate.
And then that helps in the case.
That's right.
And we're back on CTV Morning Live. Here was Ask the Expert, and we're talking to Brenda Hollingsworth today from Auger Hollingsworth. She's a personal injury lawyer, talking about accidents, the car accidents that she is seeing, so many of them that she's receiving calls on. So if you have any questions, if you've been in one, you're not sure how to handle it, you're not sure if you have a case, you want more information, there's all the information on your screen for how you can get that to us right now, right here live on the air. 789-6559, extension 2803, ottawa.morning@ctv.ca. So we were talking before the break about all the different types of accidents that you're seeing commonly out there, not just the fender benders, but some that are more like left turn accidents, right turns into cyclists. That one's common downtown. Let's talk about then when, after that accident happens, how do the lawyers solve the problem, if you will, and decide whether or not there's a case?
Right. So the question of who's responsible for the accident is one that we spend a lot of time on. People think we spend a lot of time on sort of quantifying their damages, and we do, but who caused the accident is often a big mystery, and engineers are often the key. Eyewitnesses and engineers. So if it's a question of who went through a red light, for example, we would canvass witnesses. Maybe we'd send out a private investigator to the area if there's a business around, see if they have any cameras, and we get those kinds of cameras. The city tracks lights, so if you tell us you had an advance left, we'll go and confirm that that intersection has an advance left. So don't tell us there's one if there isn't, because we're going to know. So that's the kind of thing we do. And then we give all that data to the engineers. And those are big, expensive reports. So we do them for significant injuries. But we'll get an opinion about who caused the accident and who could have avoided the accident.
There's a whole lot of work that goes in behind the scenes. What you do at the law firm is not just, okay, you've got a case and this is how much money you're going to get.
Yeah, I wish it was. That'd be a good job for me.
It would be a lot easier, I'd imagine. But there's a lot of work that goes into it, because if you deem that there is a case here for a suit, it's because you've done all the work, and you can reassure that client that they're not at fault and that they are entitled to some kind of compensation. Yeah,
I mean, sometimes, we'll get an engineering report and the other side gets an engineering report that says something different. So it's not always like, oh, engineer, you win. But we know how to respond to engineering reports and just create a risk on the insurance company so that they want to give compensation.
Do a lot of people worry that the minute they call a lawyer on something like this, that they're going to go to trial, there's going to be this big thing, they have to testify? Is that probably one of the questions you get a lot?
Yeah, that's one of the biggest reasons why people don't seek compensation, because they're terrified that they're going to end up in a trial. And even though they're not at fault, even though they deserve compensation, they just don't want to put themselves in that situation. And I get it. It's not, well, I was going to say it's not fun. Trials are fun for lawyers. They're not fun for the parties.
Sure.
And so, I understand the concern. About 2% of cases in Ontario go to trial.
So then,
personal injury cases.
So 98% of them settle outside.
That's right.
And what does that settlement look like?
Well, it can happen at many different times of the process. Sometimes people are able to negotiate a settlement with the insurance company directly. And if that's something that you think you want to do, we do have a book on our website about that, and you can go and look at ahinjurylaw.com, and you can go look and get the book, because that might help you do it on your own. Sometimes we negotiate with the insurance company right off the bat. You come to us, you tell us your story, sounds pretty cut and dried. Maybe your injury is something straightforward like a broken wrist. Okay, well, we know what the parameters of that are, so we'll call the adjuster, and maybe we'll get a settlement for you in a couple of months. That happens, not as much as it used to, but it does happen for sure. So those are sort of the two early resolution possibilities.
You say a couple of months, and that being the quick resolution.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes.
It takes a long time for these things to go work their way through.
Yeah, it does. And part of that is because we can't settle your case until we know what your medical outcome's going to be. So if you're still in active rehab, how do we know how much to ask for? Are you going to be able to return to all your activities or not? And that's what you get money for in Ontario. It's your loss of function. It's not because something bad happened to you, it's because you've lost something that you used to be able to do. So we need to know where you land on that. So that takes time.
Okay.
And then the process takes time.
Welcome back to Ask the Expert. Today, if you'd like to reach out to Brenda directly, all her information is right there on your screen. Send her an email, info@ottawalawfirm.ca. Give her a call. And they have a couple addresses, one on Woodruff Avenue and one on O'Connor Street downtown. So we've been talking this morning about different types of car accidents, collisions, and then we moved on to a little bit more about, how these suits are settled. Oftentimes, most often, out of the courts, settled between lawyers or the lawyer and the insurance company. What then does that compensation look like? Because I think a lot of people hear numbers and think, oh, I got into an accident, I'm going to become a millionaire.
Right.
Not so much the case. How does it work? How are numbers calculated based on the accident?
Right. So the one that most people think about is your pain and suffering number. And as we were just talking about before the break, that's actually measured by your loss of function. It's not measured by how bad the conduct of the other driver was. And a lot of people get fixated on the other driver. It's not about the other driver. It's about what happened to your body. And so we look at your case and we look at your injuries and we look at your loss of function and we compare it to other cases. And based on that, we have an idea. Most accidents are sort of in the $100,000 to $200,000 range. Most accidents that a personal injury lawyer would take are kind of in that range for pain and suffering. And I'm not saying it's acceptable. I think it's low, but it's what is available.
Right.
And there's a cap in Ontario. It's in Canada, it's right around 400,000. So if you are in the most serious accident where you maybe use a wheelchair for the rest of your life or you have a catastrophic brain injury, you're getting 400,000.
It's capped at 400,000.
Yeah, it's indexed to inflation, so it goes up over time, but that's not very much every year.
I was going to say that almost seems kind of low.
It's very low.
If your entire life is changed and you become bound to a wheelchair for the rest of your life, and obviously that would impact probably everything
you do. Yeah. So, I mean, that's not the only compensation you get, right? You would get help for attendant care and medical care and loss of income. So those are often big numbers. Like if you're a young person and you can never work again, that can be, a couple $1 million, and we see that all the time. But the pain and suffering number is low, and that the Supreme Court of Canada made a decision in 1970 that we were not going to turn into the U.S. and we were not going to become sort of the Wild West of litigation. And that it's been challenged a few times since 1970. But no go.
It's still there.
It's still there. So, yeah.
Now, if that's for the pain and suffering element, there are other ways that you can receive compensation as well,
That's right, yeah. So loss of income is a big one. So we look at, what you were doing at the time, and maybe you were going to get a couple of promotions. A lot of our federal government clients, we can see the career path quite easily because of the bands are published, so it's pretty easy. If you're 35 and you were probably going to have 3 promotions before retirement, and you probably know when your retirement is, we're able to calculate that. We're able to calculate what your pension loss is because you're not at that higher pay band. Maybe you go back to work part-time, maybe you go back full-time, but you don't take any promotions. We're able to calculate what we think is going to happen. There's some crystal ball gazing involved, but we can make predictions with medical help.
How often then are when you make those assumptions on, I guess, rough estimates, if you will, really, on all of that, how often is the compensation what that is?
Never, right?
There's always a negotiation.
Right, so we calculate what your home run would be at trial. So if a jury accepted our evidence on every point, here's your $2 million number. But then you have to look at, how strong are our assumptions for your future loss of income, for example. How strong are we on liability? Is there a chance that you would be found a little bit responsible? Maybe you were going, 10 kilometers over the speed limit. Maybe you're going to get dinged for that. They're going to fine you 10% responsible for your own injuries.
Right.
So all of those things go into negotiation. And then there's just, negotiation to get it done, right? How badly do you want it done today versus the trial that's going to happen in 3 years?
So that always kind of brings it down a little bit.
Yeah, but the client's in the driver's seat though. Like, you decide, right? And we'll take any case to trial if the client wants to go to trial. Sure. We'll tell you the risks, we'll give you the recommendation, but in the end, it's your decision. Most people don't choose trial, but some do.
Because trial may not work out in your favor.
Well, you don't know, right? In Ontario, there's still a lot of jury trials that happen if your case is worth over $200,000, and that's some of the mediators like to say that's 6 people from Tim Hortons deciding what you're going to get. Not judges, not trained legal professionals, but people who listen and form an impression. And you don't know who's going to be on that jury.
Right. So it's interesting and not surprising that the majority settle outside of court. What's the number one thing viewers should know at this time of year? I know you guys are so busy, and but when it comes to getting involved in something like this, and this happens every day in our city, collisions happen all the time.
Yeah.
When to reach out to a lawyer, because like we've talked about, some of the times people have hesitations about it.
Yeah.
But I think they've learned a lot from you today on how much work goes in behind the scenes in a law firm, in a personal injury law firm.
Oh, yeah.
To make sure that that client is taken care of and that you find out if they do or don't have a case.
Yes. So the advice would always be make the call, right? Personal injury lawyers offer free consultations. Not all lawyers do, but personal injury lawyers almost always do. Give us a call. You'll get a conversation with a lawyer. The lawyer will go through your situation and tell you either, you have a case and we'd love to represent you and here's the scenario, or we're not sure, let's see how your injuries progress, call us back in a couple of months, or you know what, I don't think you have something, and here's why.
Okay.
And that's useful, right? Then you're not wondering.
But you could never know without the advice of a lawyer who can give you that, because you know the law inside
Well, that's
and out.
it. And your neighbor telling you that they didn't have a case, so you don't have a case, don't listen to your neighbor.
Yeah. Listen to the lawyer. Call the experts on this.
Yeah.
The experts.
The free lawyer. Yeah.
All right, Brenda, as always, a pleasure. Thanks so much for being with us today.
My pleasure.
And there's all the information. So if you were a little too shy to call in today, don't worry about that. Call Brenda directly. There's all the information on your screen how you can reach her.